After spending the movement control order and the conditional movement control order in Reebok Island Marina, we returned to Penang unexpectedly. This return trip was for me to actually obtain medical treatment at one of the private hospitals on the island. And once I was established with a specialist, we were then able to enjoy some of the attractions that we'd missed during our first visit. Fortunately, Penang at that time was under the recovery movement control order, so we were allowed to be out and about. Our first outing was to the Upside Down Museum, and although we had no idea of what to expect, it was a lot of fun.
Be careful. You can try to look up. Look up, sir. Ah. Be careful, madam.
After our fun at the Upside Down Museum, we then paid a quick visit to the ruins of Fort Cornwallis before enjoying lunch at China House. China House was a restaurant that was first introduced to us by Maria and Maurice of Kativa, and it became a favorite for us to have lunch or a freshly baked delight. The Book was another favorite restaurant in downtown Georgetown, where we enjoyed lunch on more than one occasion, as well as dinner with friends. Our next outing was to Intopia at the butterfly farm, which was actually extremely interesting, and it was another one of those attractions of Malaysia that we had no idea what we were in for, but it was a very pleasant surprise. In between enjoying all the butterflies, we also had all these other interesting creatures to learn about. Including this particularly dangerous snake that decided to pay us a visit on Paw Paw when we were in Indonesia and got stuck in our sliding doors. As well as some interesting fauna. This was also the first time since arriving in Malaysia that we saw the lotus flower. By mid-August, unfortunately, Penang Island was no longer a green zone, and with COVID cases increasing on the island, we were limiting our outings. However, we did decide to visit the Ku Kong Si Klang Temple, an historic treasure that we nearly decided to skip. But we were delighted that we didn't, and we had the entire place to ourselves. There wasn't a single tourist anywhere. We were astonished to discover a tranquil residential community right in the centre of Georgetown's hustle and bustle, which quietened down the minute we entered the granite-paved courtyard area. The complex consisted of an array of 19th century row houses, an association building, and a traditional theatre where Chinese operas were still staged during the 7th lunar month until the start of the pandemic, all of which surrounded this magnificent temple. This is considered the grandest clan temple in Malaysia, and it was perfectly obvious as to why it had this claim to fame. The elaborate architecture, the embossed gold everywhere, the richly ornate beams of the finest wood, the embellishment of intricate carvings, including the exterior carved granite walls and pillars. The craftsmanship was absolutely stunning and had us marveling as we slowly worked our way around. The association was founded in 1835 when 102 members of the clan put together a sum of 528 Straits dollars to establish their clan temple, built in 1851. Being amongst the wealthy Straits Chinese traders of the 17th century, Singapore, Malacca and Penang, by the 19th century, the clan complex resembled a miniature clan village with its own self-government as well as educational, financial, welfare and social organizations. Unfortunately, the temple burnt down in 1901, following which a scaled-down version of the original was later built in 1902 and completed in 1906. While the clan temple is dedicated to the clan's patron deities, it houses a museum section with a collection of ancestral tablets and various other priceless artifacts. It was also one of the locations used in the filming of Anna and the King, starring Jodie Foster and Chow Fun Fat, since the Thai government had prohibited the film from being shot in Thailand. Our delicious meal at the very unusual but upscale CP Museum Dim Sum restaurant completed another fabulous outing. We, however, once again had no idea what we were ordering or indeed where this restaurant was located, but as Roy indicated, we were probably dining with the people who run Penang, and he probably wasn't too far off the mark. The Blue Mansion is a place we wanted to see during our first visit to Penang Island, but unfortunately it was closed for renovations. So when we returned for our second visit and it was open, we jumped at the opportunity to see the hotel. One of the first things the guide told us about was the Staffordshire ceramic tile floors, beautifully protected by poor housekeeping and a 130-year-old layer of dust that coated it. But consisted of a few imperfections of yellow against yellow or black against black tiles instead of alternating. However, our tour provided us with a fascinating account of the remarkable man, Siong who built the Blue Mansion. Born in 1840 in Danu, Guangdong, China, to a poor Hakka family, he worked himself up from nothing to become a Chinese businessman and politician, a powerful industrialist and a first-class Mandarin of China. This was a classic rags to riches story of a man who became known as the Rockefeller of the East. He started working at an early age as a cowherd in his village, but by the age of 16 he had left China and started work as a water carrier in Jakarta, Indonesia. Wise enough, though, to marry the daughter of the man who had employed him. With financial backing from his father-in-law, he established a trading company and grew his business. In 1877, he expanded his business from Jakarta to Medan and increased his involvement in various commodities to include the agricultural production of rubber, tea and coffee, in addition to tin mining, glassware and textiles, as well as diversifying into the financial sector by acquiring a bank. In 1886, he expanded again, this time to Penang, owning 3 ships which operated between Penang and Medan. Penang, however, was his base, and the Blue Mansion a home for his favorite 7th wife. The mansion itself also has an interesting history, with a grandeur and architecture that certainly reflected the achievements of the man who built it, personifying the essence of majesty and elegance. Prior to the construction, though, a thorough consultation was undertaken with the era's leading Feng Shui master, and even by today's standard has been declared by modern-day masters to be Feng Shui perfect, fulfilling the concept of man and nature coexisting in harmony. For us, it was a fascinating account of the man and his extraordinary achievements, as well as learning all about the wonders of Feng Shui. Another mansion we enjoyed, so much so that I returned to it twice, the second time with Anne of Time Bandit, was a museum dedicated to Penang's Peranakan heritage. The term is associated with the Peranakan Chinese, or the Peranakans, who are a sub-ethnic group defined by their geological descent from the first Chinese settlers in the Malay Peninsula and the Indonesian archipelago, as well as the Peranakan culture, especially in the dominant Peranakan centers of Malacca, Singapore, and Penang. This culture is characterized by its unique hybrid of the ancient Chinese culture and the local cultures. The ancestors of most individuals who identify as Peranakans were immigrants from the southern province of China, who arrived in significant numbers in the 15th and 17th centuries. Their descendants in Malacca, Singapore, and Penang are referred to as Babanongya, a term we first encountered while touring in Malacca. And this brings us to Chung King Ki, the 19th century Chinese tycoon who built and resided in the Penang Peranakan mansion with his 3 wives. He commissioned the construction of the mansion in the 1890s. Today it contains thousands of Peranakan artifacts, antiques and collectibles, and showcases the Peranakan lifestyle, interior design and customs, such as the typical grand, long dining table, which we learned from our tour guide was positioned perfectly so that King Ki could see all 4 corners of the house, the entrance and the staircase, using mirrors mounted on the wall, when he sat at the head of the table while entertaining guests. It was believed that this was necessary as a powerful man within the local High Sun's secret society, and per our guide, as a member of the Chinese mafia. Also, these long tables were used only to entertain guests, since Chinese families only eat around round tables. In addition, he built a temple which incorporates a life-sized statue to honor himself. The number of dragons on the facades of the temple were another indication of his power within the community. During my second visit, we had the bat motif to encourage good fortune pointed out to us, as well as the fact that all the furniture was interleafed, since nails were reserved exclusively for coffins. Another detail was the opium license and the hard wooden bed and pillows that were used to keep the opium users from falling asleep. Our tour continued to Baba Peter Soon's private collection, where we learnt that a beaded slipper took 4 months to complete, and the beaded tapestries took 8 months, with production rotating through every female family member, each taking an hour a day to work on it. When you first look at the tapestry, it looks as if it was completed using wool or thread, but when you zoom in, the tiny beads reveal themselves. It was simply stunning. Of course, there was also a display of the tiny shoes worn by women when their feet were bound and deformed, a tradition that was used to prevent a girl running away from her husband after the marriage ceremony. Articles of clothing depicting the gold thread embroidery were also on display. And at the end of a long day, when you had finished your beading and embroidery work, you could use the purpose-made furniture to massage your hands. The jewelry covered all sorts from beautiful necklaces, rings, bracelets, headdresses, hair clips, and tiaras to gold belts used by the men to keep their pants or wraps in place. It included this exquisite headdress made from the feathers of the molokite kingfisher from South Africa and the little kingfisher from Australia. The craftsmanship in everything we saw was incredible, and in some instances, a craftsman left their signature. On leaving the museum the second time with Anne, we spotted money in these various artifacts. Unfortunately, we never found out what the purpose was. By the end of August, after awaiting the completion of a long weekend and to see the trend in the new COVID-19 cases on Penang Island, we really needed to get off Pawpaw. A sign, "Gone Farming," hanging on the saloon door would have been very appropriate indeed, and summed up a wonderful day out. But as Roy succinctly put it to the grab driver, we want to get away from people and away from the marina. So up into the mountains we went to the tropical fruit farm, originally built in 1998 to preserve Penang's green heritage and to promote agro and ecotourism amid the intensive development of the rural communities within the country. Since its inception, the farm has acquired many rare and exotic fruit trees from around the world and has successfully harvested them. This success is due to the use of organic fertilizer, which is processed at the farm. For us, it was a fabulous walk in the mountain air through the orchards, learning about these trees and tasting their delicious bounty. Besides enjoying all these tasty fruits, it was the grafting technique that caught our attention, where a small section of the tree is cut out, then the exposed area is wrapped in transparent plastic filled with soil. With sunlight, roots sprout, following which this section of the tree can be removed and planted, creating a new one. We then got to sample the various fruit enzymes produced on site before selecting a freshly squeezed fruit juice and enjoying a plate of tropical fruit. The Art and Garden by Fuan Wong was our next stop. We were pleasantly surprised to find some of the most unusual artwork by various local artists as we meandered through this beautiful terraced garden carved out of the side of the mountain. It was all quite fascinating and at times difficult to discern the glass art from the actual plants. And we also learned that the pie discs were regarded as a symbol of power by the old Chinese rulers and were used in various ceremonies and rituals. With no one around to take us through the gardens though, the gardeners themselves were delighted to show us some of the more intriguing plants. By September, after a difficult month with my health, we were delighted to have Anne and Stuart of Time Bandit as company for a few weeks. And besides sampling the local cuisine, Roy also joined Anne and Stuart on a hike to the Penang National Forest. They also had the opportunity to see the unique lake comprising fresh water and seawater which floats separately, creating two distinct layers due to the varying levels of salinity. By the end of September, we had celebrated our wedding anniversary and enjoyed a fabulous 5-course dinner at Suffolk House. This historic building is a Georgian-style mansion, also known as Penang's first Great House. Over 200 years old, Similar to the Blue Mansion, it is one of Penang's most important colonial heritage landmarks and is described as an Anglo-Indian garden house. It once belonged to Captain Francis Light, regarded as the founder of the British Straits settlement on Penang Island, and served as his residence within his pepper garden and plantation called Suffolk Estate, named after his home country in England and where he lived until his death in 1794. By the end of October, Halloween was enjoyed with a beautiful blue moon, and before we knew it, Christmas was upon us. Straits Quay had decorated the entrance to the mall, which had certainly added some cheer, because at this stage we were all still in lockdown. However, Elaine received a Christmas treat of a slightly different nature, something Roy kept a secret right up until our Grab driver pulled into the hotel entrance. Our Christmas getaway at the 5-star Eastern and Oriental Hotel. What a lovely surprise it turned out to be. This hotel is known for its luxurious accommodation and restaurants and is a beautiful colonial-style hotel, 134 years old and founded by the Saki brothers. Since the hotel had just opened up after the movement control order, the staff went out of their way to not only make us feel welcome, but to create a wonderful Christmas for all the guests, as well as keeping us all as safe as possible. The little touches included a delicious Christmas mince pie that was left with our Christmas gifts when the staff came in to turn the beds down. For us, this was a very special place to enjoy our Christmas, albeit away from our loved ones. Our absolutely delicious Christmas dinner and our first ever high tea helped create wonderful memories during these troubling times. New Year's Eve, however, was somewhat spoilt by the confusion around the visa amnesty. But a few short months later, we were forced to leave Malaysia anyway when the amnesty was rescinded. Our hasty departure from Malaysia to meet the deadline of the 21st of April was not the best way for us to end our wonderful time in Malaysia, a country we thoroughly enjoyed visiting.